this really special evening of Bloomsday, tribute to James Joyce's Ulysses. Pleased to begin this Bloomsday event with greetings by our wonderful partner in this evening, Kyle O'Sullivan, Ambassador of Ireland to the State of Israel, who came to us in 2019, but we barely got to know him before we put him in lockdown. So happily, please let me introduce the Ambassador, Kyle O'Sullivan. Are you here? I know you're here.
Thanks, Karen.
Hi there.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah? Excellent. I'm glad it's working. Thanks very much, Karen. Thanks for inviting me to speak. Michael, you're joining us from a hotel room or a hospital room, which seems slightly Joycean, but I'm not sure why, but I'll get well soon. You asked me to say a few welcoming words. Generally, that's not setting the bar too high for a few words, welcoming words. But when the invitation's from the Israel Association of Writers in English, and the day is Bloomsday, even a few words have to be well chosen. So it's a bit challenging for me. And in that concept of language, there's something about Joyce's language, I mean, apart from that being an obvious understatement, that always interests me and I think is worth saying here. It's not in Joyce's the narrative technique or the structure of the modern novel. For me, it's the way the language is often both quintessentially Irish and at the same time cosmopolitan. It reflects his classical education, his exile from Ireland to the continent and so on. But it's a bit more than that somewhere. The language is often dense and it's often inaccessible to people from Dublin like me, but somehow accessible to people from cultures all over the world. The language is earthy sometimes, but not at one particular spot on the earth. And I'm not sure how he does that. I suppose people on this Zoom call know better than I do. So I can't match Joyce's language. I thought I'd fall back on my accent, an Irish accent. If you accepted Ulysses was written in an Irish accent, then maybe welcoming words in an Irish accent might help. So yesterday I listened to a live recording of Joyce reading a piece from Ulysses in 1924. And I discovered, of course, that he speaks in a Cork accent. He's from Fermoy in Cork, where he was born. I'm only from Dublin. I can't do a Fermoy accent. Maybe Stephen Daedalus or Buck Mulligan sounded like me, but Joyce didn't. So I didn't win on that one either. More importantly, the readers you have this evening will have a range of accents and intonations and skills and expertise. And I expect them, and I promise they'll bring to life and bring to this place on earth some passages of one of the best known and best loved novels in the English language. So I might leave it there and say, I hope you enjoy the evening. Thanks for asking me to say a few words. I wish you all well, and I'm looking forward to hearing it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. I know that we can't applaud out loud, but we applaud. We applaud anyway. Thank you. But to give us the sound of an Irish accent, you helped us already. But to give us the sound of real Irish, we'd like to begin the literary part of this event with one of my favorite poems, Pangor Ban, written about the 9th century by a monk about his cat, Pangor Ban. And it's an honor to introduce Natalie O'Shea, whose doctorate in Celtic studies is being followed now by postdoctoral research at the School of Irish in Trinity College. She's better known, though, these days, singer, songwriter, and the lead singer of the well-known Russian folk band, Melnitsa. And please silent yourself.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much. I'm really delighted to be here. I'm really delighted to be part of this Bloomsday journey all over the world. And especially thanks to you, Karen, for mentioning my my stint at Trinity College Dublin, because this way I can say big thanks to my revered friends and mentors, Antal of Damon McManus and Antal of Liam Brenach and the rest of the gang. Ryan McGuelge, I love you boys. Seriously, you were the best and still are. And here I am to recite a little part of one of the most lovely poems ever written in Irish. And it just occurred to me as I was preparing my speech is that not only Ireland is the only country to have a musical instrument as its national symbol and a flag and a coat of arms, but also maybe one of the very, very few countries to have a poem about the cat as one of the national symbolic poems. I couldn't actually think of any other nation to have a kind of cult cat figure in a nation poem that we could refer to. And this makes it really special. Unfortunately, I cannot present my cat now because she's not willing to cooperate. My little assistant, anyway, she's not white, she's a gray one. So she's my Pangur Leah. I'm going to give you a few words about the poem. As you probably know, the Irish monks were doing lots of works around the medieval European monasteries. So the guy who wrote this poem was working in a monastery called Reichenau. And I mean, like they were quite creative. They spent their time drawing little pictures on the sides of the scripts. They spent their time writing little glosses and also poems. So Pangur Bán is a fantastic example of what a creative monk could do whenever he was bored, whenever he was slightly fed up with his Greek glosses, his Latin dictionaries, and just copying old manuscripts. The poetic scheme that Pangur Bán refers to is called in general Don Dírich, and the meter is called Davy in modern Irish, which might sound slightly unusual to common English speaking here, or even to Russian here and there, because I'm Russian. I was born in Moscow, because the long vowels and stresses don't really coordinate. But once you kind of get used to that, you see the beauty of it, because the complexity of Old Irish and Middle Irish and early modern Irish poetry, bardic poetry, the whole Don Dírich system is as beautiful as complicated it is. And it can only be compared to the Old Irish law system, which is ridiculously complicated. Anyway, I go to Pangur Bán and I do my best rendition of reconstructed early Irish. Mishe August Pangur Bán, Kachtam Nata Frier Hamdan. Beta ven was een frischelg, maar wen geen in Sachet. Karimsche Foos, Varkach Ploe, ak Mulauran, naar een, niet armtig vreemd Pangur Bán, Karikishin Avakdan. Oru Wiem, Skelkend Skish, in het Tirdish, Noindish, Taatjun, Dichrichiriklus, Nefrishtardam, Nathius, Natu Horid, Aggressive Gull, Glanach Luch, in a Linsam, Osmedoit, and in Shane, the hidden Norid, the Dronshin. Well, I suppose that's far enough, because the poem is quite long, and Karen is going to follow me up with English translation. Thank you very much, everybody. Happy Bloomsday to you.
Thank you so much, Natalia. And it's amazing to hear it in Irish. And now we're going to hear it, a little bit of it, in Auden's translation of, can you hear me? Yes, in Auden's translation of this wonderful poem. I and Pangur Bán, my cat, 'tis a like task we're at, Hunting mice is his delight. Hunting words I sit all night. Better far than praise of men 'tis to sit with book and pen. Pangar bears me no ill will. He too plies his single skill. Practice every day has made Pangar perfect in his trade. I get wisdom day and night, turning darkness into light. Turning darkness into light is what I hope we're doing tonight. Sometimes the texts of Joyce are a bit hard to understand. And we have a wonderful professor from Haifa University, Professor Emeritus Noam Flinker, whose forthcoming book, The Hebraic Odyssey, studies the theme of Odysseus in history and looks forward to Joyce's Ulysses and the Coen brothers. Okay. Noam.
Okay.
Welcome.
Good evening. I apologize in advance for providing information about Joyce's novel that many of you will have long since discovered. Nevertheless, it's my hope that all of you will find something new in what I'm about to say. The plot of the novel concerns the events and experiences of Stephen Dedalus and Leopold Bloom in Dublin on June 16, 1904. This was Joyce's way of revisiting Homer's Odyssey, the experiences of Odysseus, Ulysses in Latin, returning to Ithaca after the Trojan War. Homer's epic was divided into 24 books by his ancient editors. Joyce's novel has 18 chapters, each of which corresponds specifically to a book or theme from Homer. The first 4 books of the Odyssey deal with the search of Telemachus, the son of Ulysses, for news about his father. The first 3 chapters of Ulysses concern Stephen Dedalus, a kind of spiritual son of Leopold Bloom. Book 5 in Homer is about Ulysses leaving the island of Calypso, where he's been stranded ever since the nymph saved him from a storm in which his ship had been destroyed. Chapter 4 in Ulysses is called Calypso. Joyce never assigned titles to his chapters, but Stuart Gilbert, with Joyce's approval, provided them. Here's Gilbert's book. Bloom leaves home to buy breakfast, kidneys from a Jewish pork butcher, returns to eat, sees Molly, and then is ready to leave. An important principle for Joyce can be termed reversibility. Bloom's wife, Molly, corresponds both to Calypso and Penelope, wife of Ulysses. Bloom both leaves her and returns at the end of the novel. Molly, as Calypso, provides warmth, sexuality, and the comfort of home. And as Penelope, she both is and is not faithful to Bloom. The themes of sexuality and alienation are introduced in this chapter, and I'm going to try to share my screen. Oh, I can't do that. Okay, so I will read from the text, but I can't show it to you. The ferret-eyed pork butcher folded the sausages he had snipped off with blotchy fingers, sausage pink, sound meat there, like a stall-fed heifer. He took a page up from the pile of cut sheets. The model farm at Kinneret on the lakeshore of Tiberias can become ideal winter sanatorium. Moses Montefiore, I thought he was. Farmhouse, wall rounded, blurred cattle cropping. He held the page from him. Interesting. Read it nearer. The title, The Blurred Cropping Cattle, the page rustling. A young white heifer, those mornings in the cattle market, the beasts lowing in their pens, branded sheep, flop and fall of dung, the breeders in hobnailed boots trudging through the litter, slapping a palm on a ripe meated hindquarter. There's a prime one. Unpeeled switches in their hands. He held the page aslant patiently, bending his senses and his will, his soft subject gaze at rest. The crooked skirt swinging, whack by whack by whack. The pork butcher snapped 2 sheets from the pile, wrapped up her prime sausages, and made a red grimace. Now, my miss, he said. She tendered a coin, smiling boldly, holding her thick wrist out. Thank you, my miss, and 1 shilling 3d change. For you, please, sir. Mr. Bloom pointed quickly. To catch behind her, she went slowly behind her moving hams. Pleasant to see first thing in the morning. Hurry up, damn it. Make hay while the sun shines. She stood outside the shop in sunlight and sauntered lazily to the right. He sighed down his nose. They never understand. Soda-chapped hands, crusted nails, trusted toenails too, brown scapulars in tatters, defending her both ways. The sting of disregard glowed to weak pleasure within his breast. For another, a constable off duty, cuddling her in Eccles Lane. They like him sizable, prime sausage. Oh, please, Mr. Policeman, I'm lost in the wood. Ulysses wants to leave the island of Calypso, even though she had promised that he would live forever if he were to stay with her. Why does Bloom leave Calypso, Molly, next door girl? They're all parallel. On one level, he simply leaves to go through the events of the day. Nevertheless, there are all kinds of parallel aspects to this chapter. The theme of sexual desire that will develop throughout the novel is introduced. There is the obvious sexuality, but it has various aspects. In Homer, Ulysses has sex with Calypso, even though he is no longer interested. In the butcher shop, the next door girl ignores him, and Bloom's desire. The sting of disregard glowed to weak pleasure within his breast. The promise of Kinneret is another aspect of Calypso. On the one hand, her attractions. As he reads the ad for, oh no, wait. He walked back along Dorset Street, reading gravely. Agendat Nitaim, Planters Company, to purchase waste sandy tracts from Turkish government and plant with eucalyptus trees. Excellent for shade, fuel, and construction. Orange groves and immense melon fields north of Jaffa. You pay 8 marks and they plant a dunam of land for you with olives, oranges, almonds, or citrons. Olives cheaper. Oranges need artificial irrigation. Every year you get a sending of the crop. Your name entered for life as owner in the book of the union. Can pay 10 down and the balance in yearly installments. Bleibtreustrasse 34, Berlin. Bleibtreu means remaining true. Nothing doing. Still an idea behind it. He looked at the cattle, blurred in silver heat, silver powdered olive trees, quiet long days, pruning, ripening. Olives are packed in jars, eh? I have a few left from Andrews. Molly's spitting them out. Knows the taste of them now. Oranges in tissue paper packed in crates. Citrons, too. Wonder, is poor Citron still in St. Kevin's Parade? And Masiansky with the old zither. Pleasant evenings we had then. Molly and Citron's basket chair. Nice to hold, cool, waxen fruit. Hold in the hand, lift it to the nostrils and smell the perfume. Like that, heavy, sweet, wild perfume. Always the same, year after year. They fetched high prices too, Moisel told me. Arbutus Place, Pleasant Street, pleasant old times. Must be without a flaw, he said, coming all that way. Spain, Gibraltar, Mediterranean, the Levant. Crates lined up on the quayside at Jaffa. Chap ticking them off in a book. Navvies handling them barefoot in soiled dungarees. There's, what do you call them out of, how do you? Doesn't see. Chap, you know, just to salute, a bit of a bore. His back is like that Norwegian captain's. Wonder if I'll meet him today. Watering cart to provoke the rain on earth as it is in heaven. Ulysses wants to leave the island of Calypso, even though she had promised that he would live forever if he were to stay with her. Why does Bloom leave Molly, Calypso, the next door girl? On one level, he simply leaves to go through the events of his day. Nevertheless, there are all kinds of parallel aspects to this chapter. The theme of sexual desire that will develop throughout the novel was introduced. There is the obvious sexuality, but it has various aspects. In Homer, Ulysses has sex with Calypso, even though he is no longer interested. In the butcher shop, the next door, as he reads the ad for buying land in Palestine, Bloom is initially fascinated, then he rejects, but ultimately gives credit to the idea. The Zionist vision is symbolized by the model farm. The ideal of Zionist return is parallel to Calypso. The fruit and the meat initially appear as highly exciting and attractive. Ultimately, the theme of exile is introduced by the vision of positive return. The warmth and comfort of a homeland is part of the attraction of Calypso. The ideal of Citron, that is Etrog, is also there, but also his friend. Sukkot is suggested by must be without a flaw, he said. Homeland is presented as heaven on earth as it is in heaven. But then comes rejection. A cloud began to cover the sun slowly, holy, gray, far. No, not like that. A barren land, bare waste, volcanic lake. The Dead Sea, no fish, weedless, sunk deep in the earth. No wind could lift those waves. Gray metal, poisonous, foggy waters. Brimstone, they called it, raining down. The cities of the plain, Sodom, Gomorrah, Edom, all dead names. A dead sea in a dead land. Gray and old now. It bore the oldest, the first race, a bent hag crossed from Cassidy's, clutching a bottle by the neck. The oldest people wandered far away over all the earth, captivity to captivity, multiplying, dying, being born everywhere. It lay there now it could bear no more, dead, an old woman's, the gray sunken cunt of the world. Desolation. Gray horror seared his flesh. Folding the page into his pocket, he turned into Eccles Street, hurrying homeward. Cold oil slid along his veins, chilling his blood. Age crusting him with a salt cloak. Well, I am here now. Yes, I am here now. Morning mouth had bad images. Got up wrong side of the bed. The rejection of Zionism implies the embrace of exile and homelessness. Leaving Calypso is to embrace alienation as a key attribute both of Jewishness and imaginative creativity. Thank you.
Thank you, Noam. It's terrible when the applause is so quiet, so silent. But we have to keep on like that. I think that we now understand the framework of the novel, and the next person who is reading has asked to be introduced, not only because she is a poet and a translator, but Noel Canin was also a student, a happy student of Noam Flinker. And Noel's going to read something far more poetic, the Full Fathom 5 section. Noel.
Hi, thank you, Karen. I hope my Latin pronunciation is correct and that I'm not insulting anybody. Okay. Under the upswelling tide, he saw the writhing weeds lift languidly and sway reluctant arms, hising up their petticoats, in whispering water swaying and upturning coy silver fronds. Day by day, night by night, lifted, flooded, and let fall. Lord, they are weary, and whispered to they sigh. St. Ambrose heard it, sigh of leaves and waves, waiting, awaiting the fullness of their times, diebus ac noctibus injurias patiens ingemescit. To no end gathered, vainly, then released, forth flowing, wending back, loom of the moon. Weary too in sight of lovers, lascivious men, a naked woman shining in her courts, she draws a toil of waters. 5 fathoms out there, full fathom 5 thy father lies. At 1, he said, found drowned, high water at Dublin Bar, driving before it a loose drift of rubble, fan shoals of fishes, silly shells. A corpse rising, salt white from the undertow, bobbing apace, a porpoise landward. There he is, hook it, quick, pull, sunk though he be beneath the watery floor. We have him, easy now. Bag of corpse gas sopping in foul brine, a quiver of minnows, fat of a spongy titbit, flash through the slits of his buttoned trouser fly. God becomes man, becomes fish, becomes barnacle goose, becomes featherbed mountain. Dead breaths, I living breathe, tread dead dust, devour a Uranus offal from all dead. Hauled stark over the gunwale, he breathes upward the stench of his green grave, his leprous nosehole snoring to the sun. A sea change this, brown eyes salt blue, sea death, mildest of all deaths known to man. Old Father Ocean, Près de Paris, beware of imitations. Just you give it a fair trial. We enjoyed ourselves immensely. Come, I thirst. Clouding over. No black clouds anywhere, are there? Thunderstorm. All bright he falls, proud lightning of the intellect. Lucifer dico kinescitocasum. No, my cockle hat and staff, and his my sandal shoon. Where? To evening lands. Evening will find itself. He took the hilt of his ash plant, lunging with it softly, dallying still. Yes, evening will find itself in me, without me. All days make their end. By the way, next, when is it Tuesday, will be the longest day. Of all the glad new year, mother, the rum-tum tiddly-tum. Lorne Tennyson, gentleman poet, Gia, for the old hag with the yellow teeth, and Monsieur Drummond, gentleman journalist, Gia, my teeth are very bad. Why, I wonder, feel, that one is going too, shells. Would I go to a dentist, I wonder, with that money? That one, this, toothless Kench the Superman. Why is that, I wonder, or does it mean something, perhaps? My handkerchief, he threw it, I remember. Did I not take it up? His hand groped vainly in his pockets. No, I didn't. Better buy one. He laid the dry snot picked from his nostril on a ledge of rock, carefully. For the rest, let look who will. Behind, perhaps there is someone. He turned his face over a shoulder. Moving through the air, high spars of a three-master, her sails brailed up on the cross trees, homing upstream, silently moving, the silent ship. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Noel. Lyrical reading. Our next reader is not so lyrical. He and I, Shawn Edrei, and I have been teaching at Tel Aviv University, where we have to be very dramatic to wake up our students. And so I'm very happy to introduce to you Shawn, who is going to read, Shawn Edrei, who is going to read about teaching.
Hello, everyone. It's a real honor to be here tonight. Thank you, Karen, for inviting me. So a few days ago, I taught the last class of the school year at Tel Aviv University. And it was a strange year, right? We started with COVID still being an everyday reality through vaccinations and rocket attacks and political upheaval. And with so much going on, the section I'm about to read, the beginning of chapter 2, is a pleasant reminder that some things never change. You, Cochrane, what city sent for him? Tarentum, sir. Very good. Well, there was a battle, sir. Very good. Where? The boy's blank face asked the blank window, fabled by the daughters of memory. And yet it was in some way, if not as memory fabled it, a phrase then of impatience, thud of Blake's wings of excess. I hear the ruin of all space, shattered glass and toppling masonry, and time one livid final flame. What's left us then? I forget the place, sir. 279 BC. Asculum, Stephen said, glancing at the name and date in the gore-scarred book. Yes, sir. And he said, another victory like that, and we are done for. That phrase the world had remembered, a dull ease of the mind. From a hill above a corpse-strewn plain, a general speaking to his officers leaned upon his spear. Any general to any officers, they lend ear. You, Armstrong, Stephen said. What was the end of Pyrrhus? End of Pyrrhus, sir? I know, sir. Ask me, sir, Coman said. Wait, you, Armstrong, do you know anything about Pyrrhus? A bag of fig rolls lay snugly in Armstrong's satchel. He curled them between his palms at whiles and swallowed them softly. Crumbs adhered to the tissue of his lips, a sweetened boy's breath. Well-off people, proud that their eldest son was in the Navy. Vico Road, Docky. Pyrrhus, sir? Pyrrhus, a peer. All laughed. Mirthless, high, malicious laughter. Armstrong looked round at his classmates, silly glee in profile. In a moment they will laugh more loudly, aware of my lack of rule and of the fees their papas pay. Tell me now, Stephen said, poking the boy's shoulder with the book. What is a pier? A pier, sir, Armstrong said. A thing out in the water. A kind of bridge. Kingstown Pier, sir. Some laughed again, mirthless, but with meaning. Two in the back bench whispered, yes, they knew, had never learned, nor never been innocent. All. With envy he watched their faces, Edith, Ethel, Gertie, Lily, their likes, their breaths too, sweetened with tea and jam, their bracelets tittering in the struggle. Kingstown Pier, Stephen said. Yes, a disappointed bridge. The words troubled their gaze. How, sir? Coman asked. A bridge is across the river. For Haynes's chapbook, no one here to hear. Tonight, deftly amid wild drink and talk, to pierce the polished mail of his mind. What then? A jester at the court of his master, indulged and disesteemed, winning a clement master's praise. Why had they chosen all that part? Not wholly for the smooth caress. For them, too, history was a tale like any other, too often heard, their land a pawn shop. Had Pyrrhus not fallen by a beldame's hand in Argos, or Julius Caesar not been knifed to death, they are not to be thought away. Time has branded them, and fettered they are lodged in the room of the infinite possibilities they have ousted. But can those have been possible, seeing that they never were? Or was that only possible which came to pass? Weave, weaver of the wind. Sorry. Tell us a story, sir. Oh, do, sir, a ghost story. Where do you begin in this? Stephen asked, opening another book. Weep no more, Coman said. Go on then, Talbot. And the story, sir? After, Stephen said. Go on, Talbot. A swarthy boy opened a book and propped it nimbly under the breastwork of his satchel. He recited jerks of verse with odd glances at the text. Weep no more, woeful shepherds, weep no more, For Ulysses, your sorrow is not dead, sunk though he be beneath the watery floor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shawn. I think that reminds me of my days of teaching. That was lovely. And now we are going to hear an Irishman. We're going to hear actually an Irish politician. That is James O'Shea, who's the deputy head of the Embassy of Ireland to the State of Israel, is going to read a politician's speech. Or, yes, the politician's speech. James.
Good evening, everybody. Karen, thank you for your wonderful conduct of the evening, and to all of the speakers who have spoken before me. This is indeed a speech. It was delivered, as I found out only recently. This is based on a real speech, which was delivered on, I think, the 21st of October, 1901, at the inaugural meeting of the Law Students Debating Society of Ireland, which is based in the Honourable Society of King's Inns, the institution in Ireland which trains barristers, an institution which I had the honour to attend myself for 2 years. So it's particularly pleasant to be reading this piece and to restore a bit of historical justice to the record, because in Ulysses, Joyce mistakenly says that the speech was delivered, or he has the character J.J. O'Malloy mistakenly say that the speech was delivered at the College Historical Society, which would be Trinity College Dublin, the institution referred to earlier by my distinguished and learned wife, which she attended, unlike myself. So we're kind of bringing the two parts of the family together in this speech. Anyway, without further ado, I begin to read. When Fitzgibbon's speech had ended, John F. Taylor rose to reply. Briefly, as well as I can bring them to mind, his words were these. He raised his head firmly, his eyes bethought themselves once more. Witless shellfish swam in the gross lenses to and fro, seeking outlet. He began. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, great was my admiration in listening to the remarks addressed to the youth of Ireland a moment since by my learned friend. It seemed to me that I had been transported into a country far away from this country, into an age remote from this age, that I stood in ancient Egypt, and that I was listening to the speech of some high priest of that land addressed to the youthful Moses. His listeners held their cigarettes poised to hear, their smokes ascending in frail stalks that flowered out with his speech, and let out crooked smokes. Noble words coming. Look out. Could you try your hand at it yourself? And it seemed to me that I heard the voice of that Egyptian high priest raised in a tone of like haughtiness and like pride. I heard his words, and their meaning was revealed to me. From the fathers. It was revealed to me that those things are good which yet are corrupted, which neither if they were supremely good nor unless they were good could be corrupted. Ah, curse you, that's St. Augustine. Why will you Jews not accept our culture, our religion, and our language? You are a tribe of nomad herdsmen. We are a mighty people. You have no cities nor no wealth. Our cities are hives of humanity, and our galleys, trireme and quadrireme, laden with all manner merchandise, furrow the waters of the known globe. You have but emerged from primitive conditions. We have a literature, a priesthood, an age-long history, and a polity. Nile, child, man, effigy. By the Nile bank the babe Maries kneel, cradle of bulrushes, a man supple in combat, stone-horned, stone-bearded, heart of stone. You pray to a local and obscure idol. Our temples, majestic and mysterious, are the abodes of Isis and Osiris, of Horus and Amun-Ra. Yours, serfdom, awe, and humbleness. Ours, thunder and the seas. Israel is weak, and few are her children. Egypt is an host, and terrible are her arms. Vagrants and day laborers are you called. The world trembles at our name. A dumb belch of hunger cleft his speech. He lifted his voice above it boldly. But, ladies and gentlemen, had the youthful Moses listened to and accepted that view of life, had he bowed his head and bowed his will and bowed his spirit before that arrogant admonition, he would never have brought the chosen people out of their house of bondage, nor followed the pillar of the cloud by day. He would never have spoken with the Eternal amid lightnings on Sinai's mountaintop, nor ever have come down with the light of inspiration shining in his countenance and bearing in his arms the tables of the law, graven in the language of the outlaw. He ceased and looked at them, enjoying silence.
James, you were so good that we want to give you the next speech. Michael, as you can see, is resting comfortably, and I think it would be wonderful if you would read his speech and his talk. Would you be so kind?
Thank you, Karen, and greetings to Michael. I'm very sorry that he is where he is, but it's an honor to be asked to read his piece on his behalf. I will not be able to do it the justice that he could have done it, and especially in relation to the Hebrew pronunciation, I ask you to excuse me in advance because I've just literally seen this piece and that there's Hebrew words in it, but I'll do my best. So, here we go. Three seekers of the pure truth: Moses of Egypt, Moses Maimonides, author of Moreh Nebuchim, Guide of the Perplexed, and Moses Mendelssohn, of such eminence that from Moses of Egypt to Moses Mendelssohn, there arose none like Moses Maimonides. Somebody needs to mute him, please. What statement was made under correction by Bloom concerning a fourth seeker of pure truth by name Aristotle, mentioned with permission by Stephen? That the seeker mentioned had been a pupil of a rabbinical philosopher, name uncertain. Were other anapocryphal illustrious sons of the law and children of a selected or rejected race mentioned? Felix Bartholdi Mendelssohn, composer; Baruch Spinoza, philosopher; Mendoza, pugilist; and Ferdinand Lassalle, reformer, dualist. What fragments of verse from the ancient Hebrew and ancient Irish languages were cited with modulations of voice and translations of text by guest to host and by host to guest? By Stephen, in Irish: Shul, shul, shul arun, shul go sucker, or shul go kyun, which means walk, walk, walk your way, walk in safety, walk with care. And by Bloom, in Hebrew: Kifeloch harimon raketech mbad lezamate. Thy temple amid thy hair is as a slice of pomegranate. How was a glyphic comparison of the phonic symbols of both languages made insubstantial of the oral comparison? By juxtaposition. On the penultimate blank page of a book of inferior literary style entitled Sweets of Sin, produced by Bloom and so manipulated that its front cover came in contact with the surface of the table, with a pencil supplied by Stephen wrote the Irish characters for G, A, D, M, simple and modified. And Bloom in turn wrote the Hebrew characters Gimel, Aleph, Dalet, and in the absence of a meme, substituted Kuf, explaining their arithmetical values as ordinal and cardinal numbers, Vidalichid 3, 1, 4, and 100. Was the knowledge possessed by both of each of these languages, the extinct and the revived, theoretical or practical? Theoretical, being confined to certain grammatical accidents, rules of accident and syntax, and practically excluding vocabulary. What points of contact existed between these languages and between the peoples who spoke them? The presence of guttural sounds, diacritic aspirations, epenthetic and servile letters in both languages. Their antiquity, both having been taught on the plain of Shinar 242 years after the deluge, in the seminary instituted by Phineas Farsi, descendant of Noah, progenitor of Israel, and ascendant of Heber and Heremon, progenitors of Ireland. Their archaeological, genealogical, hagiographical, exegetical, homiletic, toponomastic, historical, and religious literatures comprising the words of rabbis and kuldis, Torah, Talmud, Mishnah, and Gemara, Masor, Pentateuch, Book of the Dun Cow, Book of Ballymote, Garland of Hoth, Book of Kells, their dispersal, persecution, survival, and revival, the isolation of their synagogical and ecclesiastical rites in Ghetto, St. Mary's Abbey, and Mass House, Adam and Eve's Tavern, the proscription of their national costumes in penal laws and Jewish dress acts, the restoration in Cana David of Zion, and the possibility of Irish political autonomy or devolution. What anthem did Bloom chant partially in anticipation of that multiple, ethnically irreducible consummation? Holod Balever Penima Nefesh Yehudi Homiya.
כל הכבוד. כל הכבוד.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You don't sound like Michael, but you're getting close. Thank you so much, James. And now we have another 2 readings. One, our next reader is the chairman of the Israel-Irish Friendship League, Malcolm Gafson. I know you're here, Malcolm, but I can't see you because I saw you before. Malcolm, here you are reading as the citizen of Ireland.
Thank you. Firstly, I just want to compliment James, my good friend there, on his Nefesh Yehudi. Wow. That was really good. Really good, James. Absolutely. Kol hakavod, a double kol hakavod to you, as Michael said. And firstly, let me say to Michael and raise my glass to him, to his very, very good health. Refuah shlema, and may you recover and get back to us as quickly as you left us, Michael. All the best to you. And Karen, thank you very much to you. And of course, all the backing, of course, from Ambassador Kyle O'Sullivan and James there too. And let's carry on. You just said, and the ambassador said earlier, that there are going to be some authentic Irish accents. We've already had, of course, the ambassador, now we had James, and now you're going to get the south of the Liffey, thick as the currents were of the river itself accent. So let's go. Leopold Bloom, our unlikely hero and most endearing character of James Joyce's Ulysses, is in essence an outsider in a very insular society. Though he converted to Catholicism to marry Molly, he was never allowed to forget his Jewish origins. And so now we find Bloom in his finest hour with his moral victory over a drunken, hatred, anti-Semitic nationalist, the citizen, in the righteous Barney Kieran's pub. Sure enough was the citizen up in the corner having a great confab with himself and that bloody mangy mongrel Garryon, and he waiting for what the sky would drop in the way of a drink. So Bloom slopes in with his cod eyes on the dog, and he asks Terry, was Martin Cunningham here? To the memory of the dead, says the citizen, taking up his pint glass and glaring especially at Bloom. Sinn Féin, says the citizen, Sinn Féin a wine, the friend we have are by our side, and the foes we hate before us. Persecution, says Bloom. All the history of the world is full of us, perpetuating national hatred amongst nations. But you know what a nation means, said John Weiss. Yes, says Bloom. Well, what is it? A nation, says Bloom, a nation is the same people living in the same place. By God then, says Ned, laughing. If that's so, I'm a nation, for I've been living in the same place for the past years. So of course everyone had to laugh at Bloom, and says he, trying to muck out of it, what is your nation, if I may ask, says the citizen. Ireland, says Bloom. Yes, I was born here, Ireland. The citizen said nothing, only cleared the spit out of his gullet and gob. He spat a Red Bank oyster out from him right to the corner. And I belong to a race too, says Bloom, that is hated and persecuted, also now at this very moment, this very instant. Robbed, says he, plundered, insulted, persecuted, taking what belongs to us by right. Oh, just at this very moment, says he, pulling up his fist, sold by auction in Morocco like slaves or cattle. Are you talking about the New Jerusalem, says the citizen. I'm talking about injustice, says Bloom. But it's no use, says Bloom. Force, hatred, history, all that, that's not life for men and women, insults and hatred. And everybody knows that. If it's the very opposite of that, that is real life. Love, says Bloom. I mean the opposite of hatred. Well, I must go now, says he, just around to the court to see if Martin is there. If he comes, just say I'll be back soon. Who's hindering you? And off Bloom pops like a greased lightning. A new apostle to the Gentiles, says the citizen. Unversed, universal love. Well, says John, isn't that what we're told? Love your neighbor. That chap, says the citizen. Beggar my neighbor is his motto. Love Moyal. He's a nice pattern of Romeo and Juliet. Charity to the neighbor, says Martin. But where is Bloom? We can't wait. A wolf in sheep's clothing, says the citizen. That's what he is. Virag from Hungary. Ahasuerus, I call him. Cursed by God. Oh, I was just around in the courthouse, says Bloom. Looking for you, Martin. I hope I'm not. No, says Martin. We're ready. And so the courthouse, my eye, says the citizen to Bloom. And their pockets hanging down with gold and silver. Mean bloody scut. Stand us to drink itself. Devil a sweet fear. There's a Jew for you. All for number one. Choose as a shithouse rat. 100 to 5. Don't tell anyone, says the citizen. Beg your pardon, says Bloom. Come on, boys, says Martin, seeing it was looking blue. Come along now. Don't tell anyone, says the citizen, letting a bawl out of him. It's a secret. And the bloody dog woke up and let a growl. Well, by all, says Martin, and he got Bloom out as quickly as he could and put him up onto the bloody jaunting car. The citizen, getting up, waddles to the door, puffing and blowing with the dropsy and the cursing and the curses of Cromwell on him. Bell, book and candle in Irish, spitting and spatting out of them. And Joe and little Al round him like a leprechaun, trying to pacify him. Let me alone, says the citizen. And begorry, he got as far as the door, and they holding him, and he bawls out to Bloom, 3 cheers for Israel. Bloom looking back at the citizen. Mendelssohn was a Jew, and Karl Marx, and Mercadante, and Spinoza, and the Savior was a Jew, and his father was a Jew, your God. He had no father, says Martin. That's enough now. Drive ahead. Whose God, says the citizen. Well, his uncle was a Jew, says Bloom. Your God was a Jew. Christ was a Jew. Like me. God, the citizen made a plunge back into the pub. By Jesus, says he, I'll beat the bloody German for using the holy name. By Jesus, I'll crucify him, so I will. Give us that biscuit tin. And the devil wouldn't stop the citizen till he got hold of the bloody tin. Where is he? I'll murder him. But as luck would have it, the Jarvey got the neg's head around the other way, and off with him. Hold on, citizen, said Joe. Big gobby to his hand and made a swipe and let the tin fly. And the Derby saved Bloom's life by his furious driving, and sure as God made of Moses. What? Oh, Jesus, he did. Did I kill him or what, says the citizen, and he's shouting to the top of his lungs, the bloody dog, after him, Gary boy, after him. And the last we saw of Bloom, jaunting car, rounding the corner, and old Sheep's face on it, gesticulating, and the bloody mongrel after us. When lo, there came about them all a great brightness, and they beheld the chariot wherein he stood ascend to heaven, and they beheld him in the chariot, clothed upon in the glory of the brightness, having remnant as of the sun, and as the moon, and terrible that for two they durst not look upon him. And there came a voice out of heaven, calling, Elijah, Elijah. And he answered with a main cry, Abba, Adonai. And they beheld him, even him, Ben Bloom Elijah, amid clouds of angels, ascend to the glory of the brightness at a single of 45 degrees over Donahue's in the little green street, like a shot off a shovel.
Bravo.
Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you very much.
I knew there was a reason you had to be almost last, because if anyone was getting tired of Zoom, they would.
Last but not least, Karen.
I will. Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you very much, Malcolm. I gave myself the present of reading Molly's last speech, her assertion and acceptance of all in a world of doubt and relativity. It seems an imperative for me to end the evening with the conclusion of a book that meanders through so many issues of divinity and the place of man and languages, and gives the conclusion to a woman who speaks in a slang long forgotten and who seems to know nothing and knows everything. Molly. I love flowers. I'd love to have the whole place swimming in roses. God of heaven, there's nothing like nature and the wild mountains and the sea and the waves rushing, and the beautiful country with a field of oats and wheat and all kinds of things, and all the fine cattle going about. That would do your heart good to see rivers and lakes and flowers, all sorts of shapes and smells and colors springing up even out of the ditches, primroses and violets. Nature it is. As for them saying there's no God, I wouldn't give a snap of my two fingers for all their learning. Why don't they go out and create something? I always ask them, atheists, or whatever they call themselves. Go and wash the cobbles off themselves first, then they can go howling to the priest and then dying. And why? Why? Because they're afraid of hell on account of their bad conscience. Huh? Yes, I know them well. Who was the first person in the universe before there was anyone who made it? Made it all. Who? They don't know. Neither do you. Neither do I. So there you are. They might as well try to stop the sun from rising tomorrow. The sun shines for you, he said that day. We were lying among the rhododendrons on Hoth oath head in the gray tweed suit and his straw hat. That day, I got him to propose to me. Yes. First, I gave him the bit of seed cake out of my mouth. And it was leap year like now. Yes. 16 years ago. My God, after that long kiss, I near lost my breath. Yes. He said I was the flower of the mountain. Yes. So we are all flowers of a woman's body. Yes. That was one true thing he said in his life. And the sun shines for you today. Yes. That was why I liked him. Because I saw he understood or felt what a woman is. And I knew I could always get round him, and I gave him all the pleasure I could, leading him on till he asked me to say yes. And I wouldn't answer first, only looked out over the sea and the sky. I was thinking of so many things he didn't know, of Mulvey and Mr. Stanhope and Hester and Father and old Captain Groves and the sailor playing All Birds Fly, and I say stoop, and washing up dishes, they called it on the pier. And the sentry in front of the governor's house with a thing round his white helmet, poor devil half roasted. And the Spanish girls laughing in their shawls and their tall combs. And the auctions in the morning, the Greeks and the Jews and the Arabs and the devil knows who else from all the ends of Europe, and Duke Street and the fowl market all clucking outside Larby Sharon's. And the poor donkeys slipping half asleep, and the vague fellows in the cloaks asleep in the shade on the steps, and the big wheels of the carts of the bulls, and the old castle thousands of years old. Yes. And those handsome Moors all in white and turbans like kings, asking you to sit down in their little bit of a shop. And Rhonda, with the old windows of the Posadas, two glancing eyes, a lattice hid for her lover to kiss the iron. And the wine shops half open at night, and the castagnettes, and the night we missed the boat at Algeciras, and the watchman going about serene with his lamp, and oh, that awful deep down torrent, oh, and the sea crimson sometimes like fire, and the glorious sunsets and the fig trees in the Alameda gardens. Yes. And all the queer little streets, and the pink and blue and yellow houses, and the rose gardens, and the jessamine, and the geraniums, and the cactuses, and Gibraltar as a girl, where I was the flower of the mountain. Yes, when I put the rose in my hair like the Andalusian girls used. And shall I wear a red? Yes. And how he kissed me under the Moorish wall. And I thought, well, as well him as another. And then I asked him with my eyes to ask again. Yes. And then he asked me, yes, to say, yes, my mountain flower. And first I put my arms around him, yes, and drew him down to me so he could feel my breasts all perfume. Yes. And his heart was going like mad. And yes, I said, yes, I will. Yes. Thank you.
Woo!
There's a reason, if in and of itself, for reading Joyce. I want to, first of all, I promised everyone at the beginning, I would let you all speak all at once at the end of the evening, after we all applauded every one of these wonderful readers and applauded James Joyce for his variety of voices and his amazing ability to put all those voices together in one. And so thank you again. Thanks so much to Carlos Sullivan, to James, to all of the participants for this wonderful evening. And enjoy yourself now. We're all going to go off mute and say speedy recovery to Michael. And I hope next time he takes over. Thank you. You're all on the air.
Wow.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Get well soon, Michael.
Thank you so much.
All the best, Michael.
Thank you, Malcolm. Thank you, Malcolm.
Thank you
You
very
read beautifully. It made me shiver.
And we can even introduce each other to each other. If you haven't had a chance to say to one of the readers that
I would like to say something. This is Jack Cohen speaking. Hi. I wanted to say something which occurred to me. My wife has Alzheimer's disease. She's had it for quite a few years now, and she's in a home, and I visit her as often as I can. And she speaks a lot, unlike many people with Alzheimer's. And she has a stream of consciousness that so reminds me of Joyce. And it's strange because none of it really makes much sense. Yet at the time when she's speaking, it's really an unfiltered stream of consciousness, which is even reminded me of some of the things that were read before. So I just wanted to make that observation because it's a strange phenomenon for me.
Thank you.
Thank you for telling. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Jack.
Well, I want to second that because I am caregiving my sister who has dementia and the same phenomenon. It's fascinating it's horrible really to see a brain completely decomposing, but that's another thing. But yes, the answer is yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Moving.
Just listening, enjoying listening to everyone.
I think that in this case, the difference between the Alzheimer's dementia and Joyce is that he knew exactly what he was doing.
Oh, of course.
And the fact that he could imitate that stream of consciousness is so common in dementia. Makes it so brilliant. And
so I suggest that everybody goes off mute and just says aloud yes.
Yes.
Affirming.
Yes.
Yes. Can you hear me, Karen?
Yes.
Yes.
Karen, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear.
Yes.
Karen, can you hear me?
Yes.
Here. We all say yes. It's the affirmation at the end is something that we all need.
Yes. Karen, you can hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Once again, I'm sure you have a minute or two or so. You would like to perhaps give a little plug to our continuation of our Bloomsday month festivities, which is taking place next Wednesday night at the center stage here in Renana, where the Israel-Ireland Friendship League, in cooperation with the Shawn community players in Central State are putting on Wolf Mankovic's The Hebrew Lesson, which originally went put on stage back in 1960. It was called The Irish Hebrew Lesson, set in the Ireland and the War of Independence of 1921. So please, Karen has all the details. Anybody wishing to come, to book, to have a great evening, and to end off the Bloomsday festivity month, please do so. You're all most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Very much. Thank you very much, Malcolm, for reminding me that I had promised to say this.
I saved you the announcement.
It saved me, and I'm very grateful. I'm
No
hoping
problem.
that we will have many events of Irish literature.
Absolutely. I look forward to associating with you many, many times in the future.
Gates's birthday yesterday that Reuven so wanted to celebrate.
Right indeed.
6/13.
13.
6/13.
Right.
Yeah.
It was the 13th, yes.
Yes, yeah, that was Sunday.
I reminded myself of Yates when I got up on the 13th, on the morning of the 13th.
We have Jonathan Swift on the 30th of November. We have Oscar Wilde. We have so many Irish authors that we want to celebrate.
We'll be with you again, Karen. We'll be with you again. I have to go. I've got to get out. And regards and refuah shlema. Great. Only good health to you, Michael. We'll see you back in the saddle
Thank you all.
very, very soon.
Karen, today is Virginia Woolf's, Mrs. Dalloway's also day.
Really?
Well, yes, that's right. We could have gone out. We can celebrate. There's so much to celebrate. But
by the way, it's a pity I'm not with you in person because I would have shared this with you tonight.
I've heard of it.
I would have shared with you this tonight. There's enough to go around for all, believe me.
Next time, all of us.
Don't worry.
There's live.
Oh, absolutely. There's more where these came from.
Could you download it, please? Could you download it?
Sorry?
Could you download it?
I don't download, I upload. I raise the spirits with the spirits. That's the way to do it. Anyway, I have to click off and get out. I hope really to see a lot of you guys with us next Wednesday night. Karen has got all the details and she can send them on to you. Thank you. Lila Tov.
Lila Tov.
To all of you.
Lila Tov and Ihawa Goler. Bye.
James,
Bye.
thank you.
To all the participants.
Bye-bye. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Be well.
May I say something? I didn't intend to, but if you let me for like a couple of minutes, I think it's. What had happened is that I'm creative writing track with Professor Chulak, and we had from 3 or 4 weeks this novel, and I fell in love and I'm still falling in love with it. And because of the situation, she asked to, instead of like doing academic intake about it or academic paper, response paper, we do something with creative writing about it. And in a way, and I didn't know that I will be here today, I wrote something inspired by episode 3. And this is like a dedication. Of course, I will not recite the whole thing, but I wanted to share with you just a small section. This is a dedication, this is inspiration, this is something that I felt that in episode 3 connected to the episode and connected to the characters. So I just recite a small part.
You have 1 minute.
I will close my eyes now, go back to whatever place you came from, either hell or heaven. Whispers, wind, whoa, whispers of Lilith, whispers of Delilah. Diana is waiting for her sacrifice. My body on her altar, waiting for her bloody hunter's hands to cut deep, reading my liver. What will Oracle would say to the high priest? Can you read my heart instead, or it will be useless? Sacratismal cor Isu, or sacratismal cor Lucifer, the sacred heart of the morning star. What will happen when I open my eyes? What had changed? Colors of the sky? The footprints? Did they come back? Ah, the footprint. If it did, which one? Slowly opening my eyes, but the tide is fast. The waves are roaring, the sky is darker than ever. All colors are mixed, are united, shades of gray, trying to breathe, gasping for air at the beach, still drowning by many footprints. Thank you.
Bravo. Thank you so much. That was very courageous of you. Good night, everybody. Good night.
Good night, Michael. Be well.
Thank
Feel
you.
better.
Thank you.